Good
Good
morning.
morning. Good morning.
Good morning. Welcome, legacy builders. Come on in and join us. Come in and join us for another Tea Time Tuesday. All right, come in. Let me know.
Uh-oh. Hopefully everyone can hear me. Looks like we're having a little technical issues here. Marcella, can you hear me? Okay, I don't even know if I'm being heard.
Welcome, legacy builders.
Okay, yeah, it looks like I am here. Okay, great. So we'll just wait for Marcella
All right,
to
come in. You can hear me, right, Mark? I don't know what
there we
happened
go.
there.
Yes.
Give me a second.
Yep. And I'm
Let's
seeing
hope.
myself online. So yes,
Yeah.
thank you, Daniel. I see here that, yes, they can hear me and we can see you again. We are back.
Okay, let's do this.
Okay,
My goodness, we're fine beforehand. We go live and it wants to act crazy, but we're here and it's working fine.
exactly.
All right. So hopefully that gave time for some other individuals to come in. Come on in as we make sure we don't have any other issues here. As usual, let me know what you're drinking: tea, coffee, water, whatever your beverage of choice is. Come on in. As you can see, I'm joined with Mark. Oh, there's Daniel. Okay, so I'm seeing some activity there. Hello, Daniel. All right, here we go. Yes, come on in, come in. And if you're catching the replay, thank you for watching. So glad you're with us. I am Marcella Mullen Williams, and I am here with Mark Mullen. So we have a special treat today. And we are the co-founders of Legacy Builder Group, where we help families create impactful, multi-generational legacy wealth. That's what we're here to do. So let's talk about this. Let's talk about what we're going to be covering, Mark, for the next 3 weeks. Pretty exciting.
Yes, it
Um,
is.
yes, today we begin our 3-part series on becoming a vigilant investor. Yes, we are really excited about the series. So before we go in, let me find out, because you had a little assignment. So let me find out who watched the Madoff docuseries on Netflix. Let me know in the comments if you watched it. Let's see, who watched the docuseries? Welcome, Francesca. All right, let me know. Just drop it in the chat and I'll see who watched it. And of course, Mark and I, you and
Oh,
you
we
watched
definitely
it. Which is what inspired this series, because,
Mhm.
a lot of red flags were going off as we shared. Francesca, you watched it.
You watched it.
Wonderful. Daniel said he
And you
watched
watched
it.
it.
Okay, great, great, great. So as people continue to join us, yes, we will talk more about it. We're going to share. I want you definitely to share your thoughts as we discuss the various topics. But I just want to make sure that we're all in this together. And if you have no idea what we're talking about, then I recommend that you go back and watch last week's Tea Time Tuesday, and it'll give you an understanding. So, what we're doing over the next 3 weeks, we're going to touch on 3 reasons Bernie Madoff successfully pulled off the largest global Ponzi scheme in history. Yes, he did. And we're going to really look at what's more important, and we want to address the important information that will increase your financial knowledge. That's what's missing. We want to increase your financial knowledge and help you elevate your financial intelligence so you can safeguard your financial future. And simply put, not fall prey to perilous financial behavior. That's what the key is, right, Mark? We want to make sure that they're not falling prey to behavior that does not meet their money intentions. So, in these three in these 3 weeks, we're going to touch on three key areas. We're going to touch on the regulatory system. We're going to address the advisor. And then the third is you, the investor. So let's get right into it, Mark. Today, we're starting with addressing the regulatory system. All right. And as we continue to welcome our legacy builders in, um, we saw the docuseries and we saw how some things went terribly wrong when it came to one of the key regulatory agencies in the financial industry, and that is the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission, right?
Yes, yes.
Yes.
So let's
Yeah.
talk about, what is the SEC? So as Marcella mentioned, it is the Security and Exchange Commission. And their primary purpose since 1934 has been to protect the investor, you and I, and maintain order in the securities market. So they are to stop fraudulent actions, manipulative practices,
Mhm.
these things that Bernie did. Okay. So the very thing that they're supposed to protect is what, you know, Bernie Madoff did. And so there was a lot of slip ups, mistakes, and just regular human biases and tendencies that favored him. And so let's go back in time a little bit to say, okay, well, with this organization, how can they protect me? Well, one of the things they can do is make sure that a company is registered, right? So if you
Mhm.
have, and products, right? So if you have products in the market, they have to be registered with the FEC. If you are managing people's monies, if you have a mutual fund, you need to be registered with the SEC. Now, with that in mind, Bernie Madoff had two practices. So for those that saw it or did not see it, and I'm not sending any spoilers,
Right, right.
he had two practices. One was legitimate. Okay. But the other one, the one that we hear in the news, that's the one that was not legitimate, that was not
Mhm.
registered. So he was managing funds, supposedly, and in the practice, that was not supposed to be doing those type of transactions. And the FEC had an opportunity back in 1992
Ugh,
to stop it from the very beginning. They had the opportunity when they were investing two accountants that were managing monies, and their net worth or the values that they were managing was over $400 million, over
yeah,
400 millions. Okay.
yeah.
And
That was
and
heartbreaking
that
to
was
watch.
rough. That was rough.
Yeah.
And those accountants put it on, they said, hey, we don't do that. We don't manage those funds. We got this guy, Bernie Madoff, that's managing the funds. So went to Bernie, and you know what they did? They didn't do anything. They didn't
Nothing.
do anything.
Nothing.
They were after the accountants, right? So they just told the accountants, they left Bernie alone, pretty much giving them a stamp of approval in doing so.
Yes.
That's what made it rough, right? It almost it gave him value
Yes.
as far as what he did. So much so that the SEC told the accountants that they had to move their money out of Bernie and give them back to the clients. Well, I won't give you all the details. Just watch.
Uh-huh.
But when Bernie did that, let's just say the clients didn't want to leave him. They didn't want to leave Bernie, right? So there was an opportunity back in 1992 to stop this. Okay, nothing happened there. But here's the thing, there were several other opportunities. Back in 1991, there was an article that went out to say, hey, there's this guy here that is his name is Bernie, and he's secretly making these huge business transactions, and the clients can't even tell anybody who this person is. They have to keep it hush. They have to keep it secret. Marcella, I don't know about you, but that by default sounds
Absolutely.
sounds
That's
wrong.
suspicious.
Yes. Bernie never really marketed himself. He was never did interviews with independent magazines and stuff like that. It was very hush hush.
Yes.
But I want
How
to
many
add.
of you yeah, I
No,
was
no,
gonna just ask, how many because we have some new people that jumped in and I wanna hear let me know if you watched the Madoff docuseries, that's
yes,
what we're covering, and let me know if you picked up on these things that Mark is talking about right now. Let us know what you picked up on
yes,
in the comments. Go ahead, Mark.
yes. And so and so when we look at this article that came out that pretty much described, now I didn't say he was doing anything wrong. It was just throwing up a lot of red flags on behavior, financial behaviors that just wasn't the standard. Okay, but let's let that slide. Okay, no one really, the SEC didn't really bite on that. Okay, that's
Right.
fine. There was a gentleman by the name of Harry Markopolos that was working with another firm that was a competitor, and they
Mhm.
were trying to re-engineer his portfolio so that they can be competitive in that market as well. Well, this brilliant gentleman pretty much said, "This is BS." Okay, we'll keep it PG. This was BS. Okay, and made it very clear that no, this he literally said this is a Ponzi scheme, and
Yeah.
filed his first claim back in 2000, May of 2000.
Mhm.
Spelled out everything how the returns that he was consistently that the clients were consistently seeing were impossible by any standards. And what did the SEC do? They ignored it. Now we have to understand here is because one of the factors is that Bernie Madoff was so prestigious in the eyes of the financial field that he couldn't do wrong. He was just
Right.
too big. As a matter of fact, the SEC looked to him for advice. They
Yes.
actually had the fox guarding the hen house, right? Now, and Marcel, I love your intake on this because at the end of the day, while we were watching this, I was just thinking, it's so easy for us to put people on these pedestals and
Mhm.
forget that at the end of the day, they're still human. They're still capable of making mistakes or
Absolutely.
fraudulent, right? And we have to look at facts and statistics and the research to determine what's really going on here.
Yes. And here's the thing, we have to really break that down. My apologies. I think for a moment they couldn't hear anything. But it's fine now. You could be heard, Mark. Um,
Okay.
and yet these are the things. Yeah, we want you to be able to pick up, and we're going to go through some of these things that will allow you to really know the red flags. You guys watching it, hindsight is great. It's so much easy to pick up on red flags after the fact, watching what happened. But what are the key elements to knowing what to look for, what to stand on, what to expect in this industry? And that's what you're talking about, Mark.
Exactly. Exactly. This is why it's so important that yes, it's great that we do have an institution that's there to quote unquote protect us. But at the end of the day, that institution is operated by human beings.
Mhm.
And by default, it's always going to have a flawed system. So this is why we have to have that multi-layer of accountability, as Marcella mentioned earlier. That's so important. So, Marcella, one of the ways that we make sure that our clients are protected is by having a third party custodian.
That's
So
right.
what we're referring to here is that your money sits with an independent company that holds those funds. The advisor, the institution, the investment advisor firm does not have the money. It's that
Mhm.
third party custodian. That way, you are protected from any advisor that may try to tap into your assets, but they can't because that's the answer to that independent company, right?
Right.
Bernie was the third party and the advisor. He was the whole thing. There was
Yes.
no accountability, right? There was no one watching his shoulder. He was the one watching over his shoulder, right? So that was a big mistake right there.
Exactly. And something that the average person would not know.
Yes.
Again, you don't even, and for many of us, we don't know to ask what to look for. Again, I'm saying this because I want you to pay attention. It's not just the fact that we're giving you information. This is information you need to know so that you can verify when you're working with an advisor. So, yes,
And
Mark.
and as we're talking about working with an advisor, it's very important that you know what's going on with your account. And another way to verify to have accountability is making sure you are reviewing your financial statements. I tell some
Mhm.
of my clients over and over again, make sure you have online access to your account. I'm grateful that you trust me. I appreciate that, but you still need to see what your money's doing. You need to see it, right? I'm not
Yes.
asking you to go in there every day, but just at least on a quarterly basis when we do our meetings that we are looking to see what's going on. You're not just taking my word, you're
Mhm.
seeing it for yourself, right? That accountability. Because again, Bernie had no online access, and you can blame, maybe the internet wasn't up at the time, but no,
It
there
was.
was opportunities, right? Technology advanced, but he only mailed them the quarterly statements, which is
Mhm.
required, right? And they were fictitious, right? Because he was the custodian, he was the advisor. So again, no accountability.
That's
But
right.
when you can go online, check it.
And
You
and
can
Kyla said, "Make sure the statements aren't fake."
exactly.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yes.
Thank
So
you.
the
Because
quality matters.
in the document, you will see even oh, that's a good point, Marcelo,
Mhm.
quality, right?
Yep.
Because Bernie's statements back in 2000, they look like they were made in the 70s and 80s, right?
Right, the dot matrix
Right.
printer.
For our younger group, you don't even know what that is.
Right.
So yeah, so it's so important that the times that the times that we are in, we're
Mhm.
making sure we access all technology to make sure we can validate what our accounts are doing. So whether it's online, whether it's apps, getting legitimate statements from your advisor and the custodian, because yes, Bernie Madoff had statements, but all the SEC was literally handed documents to verify Bernie's transactions. And because of that prestigeness, they just took his word for it. Had
Yes.
the documents in hand, the fake documents, the proof, the evidence, and chose to ignore it. Right.
Yes.
And this is
Absolutely.
why, Marcel, please.
Oh, no, I was just agreeing with what you were saying. Go ahead. You were saying, "This is why." I don't wanna interrupt that part.
Well, no, I'm going right into making sure that, again, that accountability, that we look to make sure that we verify. And one of the best ways to do that is utilizing the Global Investment Performance Standard. It's what we call GIPS for short. So it's the
Mhm.
benchmark recording system that explores the investments of the financial industry. And so, because they're on a global scale, they fit a standard that you want businesses to follow. So, in other words, all the returns that you're seeing on your statements,
Mhm.
the Gibbs report verifies that those returns are actually what the statements are. And the firms, Charles Schwab, Fidelity, Matson Money, they all would have to pay for that to get that done, right? So it's not something that's included. No, they have to spend millions to get that done. But for you, the investor, you want to make sure that's getting done because
Yes.
that made that I don't want to say guarantee, but that solidifies, that validates that what you're seeing is actually the returns that's happening, is actually what's going on.
Yeah.
Bernie had no GIPS, right? There was no standard for him. Again, he
Exactly.
was doing it all, right? And there
Right.
are a lot of firms out there that do not apply to the GIPS, whether it's because they don't want to spend the money. It's not illegal, but it's that extra step to make sure you are getting what you need from your portfolio. And it's something that we stand by, right, Marcella?
Absolutely. It's that, again, that extra layer of accountability and just knowing the difference of working with a firm that values accountability and is willing to invest in protecting you, protecting us, protecting all parties. It's very important. It's a win-win. And that's the kind of thing you want to look for.
And so the last thing I want to share real quick here, the fourth component is before you before you even go into and checking out a firm, let's break it down this way. When you're investigating a firm, a lot of people don't consider, hey, has this firm had any fines or penalties? You- I can't tell you the number of times people do their research, and that's the one area they don't look. Because if you
Mhm.
look, you'll be astounded by some of the big names. I'm not going to call them out in this meeting.
Yes. Yes.
Some of the biggest names you hear all the time have millions in dollars in fines and penalties, millions that they're paying.
Mhm.
That's something you want to check. Has the company that my money's been invested in or will be invested in, have they been hit with fines and penalties from the SEC or with FINRA and any other of those regulatory systems? And if so, you have to ask yourself, well, what did they do? What did they did? And is that an institution you want to have your money a part of?
And it shows,
So
and Mark, it shows up in different ways, even though we're talking about specifically in the investment arena. But remember how in the documentary, Chase, and I'm just calling them out because they're in the documentary,
yep,
the
yep,
docu-series.
yep,
They were fined because, obviously they were holding the funds. They were the bank that was holding the funds for the illegal side of Bernie's business. They were fined for their part in that, and then they carried on. They got a slap on the wrist, an undisclosed amount of money they paid. But what was implied is that many of these institutions get a slap on the wrist and then they keep doing what they're doing. And this is why it's important, to understand what Mark is talking about here. What we're addressing here is that it's important to look at these things because there are multiple factors involved in investing and in finance. There are, as we mentioned, layers of agencies and firms and institutions involved in being in this arena. So asking the right questions is what we want to make sure you are able to do. Knowing how to verify is what we want to make sure you are able to understand and do. That is the key to why we're bringing this information to you today.
exactly. At Marcella, one of the things that we really got out of the documentary and why we're doing this three-part series, today is day one. We expect to see everyone here next Tuesday. Is that it's so important to understand that yes, we focus on Bernie, this bad and evil person, and all the adjectives we can describe. But at the end of the day, it was the system. It was this framework that created this ideal situation. It was not Bernie alone. Okay, I want to be
Absolutely.
very clear with this. This is why Marcella said in the very beginning, we need to make sure we look at the regulatory system, the advisor, and the investor. You, we all three of these played a part, right? So there's no.
Mhm.
I want to be very clear. There's no innocent person here. Okay, they're victims, right? But no
Mhm.
one's innocent because we all need to do our due diligence. And Marcella, I cannot wait to go into the other two categories. You know,
Yes.
the SEC, we have to understand that they're there to be a protection, a hedge, but they can't do it all because at the end of the day, they're still fallible. Why? Because it's
Mhm.
still individuals with the mindsets that can be skewed by prestigeness, wealth, fame, whatever it is, that can still play a part and for them to not do their job. And we saw
Mhm.
that collapse desperately. I mean, just fatally collapse with Bernie.
Yes, yes. Great point, Mark. Such good information, everyone. We're going to wrap up here because there's so much we can cover, but we really want to nail these points for you so that you understand these four key areas. Go back, listen to the replay. If you didn't catch it all, it's here in the Facebook group. So just make sure you can have notes and start learning the language of money. This is what we're talking about, the language of money, the language of wealth building. You are a legacy builder. This is the language you need to learn. So, as you do that, continue to stay tuned in. Join us next Tuesday for part two, where we cover the advisor, Mark, the advisor.
Yes.
Man, there were an alarming amount of red flags in this docu-series. around the advisors. Mark
Mhm.
touched on a few of them today, and we're going to continue tomorrow. Obviously, Bernie Madoff being the main one. But we're going to take a closer look at that. So we'll be able to address this and what you need to know when you're working with a financial professional, period. These are the information. This is the information we're going to talk about next week. So join us. Join us. Watch this again. Get your notes ready. Watch the docu-series if you haven't yet. There's still time to catch up and join us. And then we'll see you next Tuesday as we continue to develop the behavior that will build your legacy. We'll see you next week. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.